Hello there, welcome to the Mythical Ireland Library. I'm Anthony Murphy. Today is St. Patrick's Day, and this is a bonus episode of Live Irish Myths. And today, of course, we're talking about none other than the man himself, St. Patrick. Lá, Féile, Fórig, Mo Chairde go léir ar fud na cruinne. A very happy St. Patrick's Day to you all, my friends around the world. Today is a very special day for the Irish, of course. We love getting dressed up, wearing funny hats, painting our faces, drinking loads of pints, and generally being very raucous and having lots of fun. Because regardless of the religious traditions associated with St. Patrick, the holiday is seen not just here, but around the world as an opportunity to celebrate Irishness. If you're watching, we are live streaming simultaneously on the Mythical Ireland Facebook page and also on the Mythical Ireland YouTube channel. And perhaps one or two of you might share the stream onto the Mythical Ireland community and the Mythical Ireland creatives. I have, well, first of all, look, if you can't beat them, join them. That's what I say, and it's all about having a little bit of fun. Of course, it's not all about fun. There is a little bit of scholarly work to be done today, but we'll get to that shortly. If you happen to be watching us, please do drop a comment and we'll say hello to you wherever you are in the world. I hadn't initially planned to do a stream today, but there is a bit of a story behind it. And that is that on Monday last, I was giving a tour of the Boyne Valley to our good friend Valerie Gallagher. Valerie is one of the Tua, has been watching the live stream since they started about 2 years ago, just a little bit over 2 years ago. And she's from Rhode Island, but she's descended from Irish families that left during the time of the famine from Donegal and County Cork. And it was while we were on the hill of Slane, and there was this just magnificent sunset. It was a glorious spring evening. And I had been talking to Valerie about the traditions of Patrick and the fire. And I'd talking about King Slane buried at Slane. I was talking about Amergin. I was talking about the Boyne and Newgrange and Nouth and Douth. And I was talking about the significance of where Patrick lit his fire. And I said to Valerie, some of this is written in my books, but a lot of it's still in my head. I should write it down. And bingo! That was the inspiration for what followed over the last few days. I have been typing the script for today's live stream. I was using my typewriter, by the way, so it's all on I was doing it the old-fashioned way. Anyway, today is an exploration of some aspects of the stories around St. Patrick and how mythological they are. And we're going to take a little bit of a step towards exploring the notion that perhaps some of the things that we've learned about St. Patrick are wholly mythological. WHOLLY, not HOLY. Anyway, a very good evening to everyone. I have to say hello to Marianne Dunn Kindia, who's the first in the house today. Marianne, it's great to see you. Kaylee During is in the house. Kaylee's YouTube channel, History with Kaylee, continues to grow magnificently and is fascinating. So get over there and give her a like and a follow. Joe Butler, Auntie Joe is in the house. You look festive. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I have to thank my daughter Tara for the makeup work. I will share to MI community and creators. Brilliant stuff, Joe. Thank you for that. Alan Hoskins is wishing everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day. Bonus episode time and face painting too. Yes, indeed. And don't forget the cheap St. Patrick's dancing leprechaun and green pipe icons in the top corner. Tinkle Tink, hello there. First, no, but close. And you're very welcome. Barbara Barney is in the house saying hello. Thank you to Tom King for the beautiful swan pendant. Love it. Brilliant stuff, Barbara. And glad to hear it arrived safely. And indeed, that you're enjoying it. The dog is being let out. Saskia, well, one of the dogs. Saskia needs to go to the toilet during the live stream, then Saskia needs to go. Mandy McCurl is in the house and is laughing. Come on, you have to get in the spirit. I mean, this is what it is. St. Patrick's Day is as much about kitsch and tackiness as it is about, genuine celebration. Archaeoastronomy Database, whose tie is wishing everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day. Many happy returns. Elizabeth Champagne, happy from Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. Brilliant. Nice to see you, Elizabeth. Good afternoon to you. Is it? Good morning. Actually, it's morning time there because it's only just after 5 o'clock here, which is why it's still bright. Hey, we're doing a live stream during the day. Brilliant. Mariana Dunn is in the house, wishing everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day from a rain but green Virginia. Well, glad to hear you got the green bit right. Madison Morrell, just finished my university classes. Delighted with the face paint. Oh, look. Anne McCallum is saying hello to everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day to one and all. Glad I got notified of this episode. What a great way to spend part of this day. So many thanks for doing this, Anthony. You're very welcome, Anne. Always a pleasure. And sure, look, don't you know, I love doing it. Helen Hirsch-Chatter is saying hello from the Black Hills to all the Tua. I hope you sprayed a bit of green there somewhere, Helen. Robin Rickman is saying happy Paddy's Day. Brilliant stuff. Robin, many happy returns to you. Pardon me. Guido Bruce is also saying happy St. Patrick's. You're very welcome, Guido. Good to see you. Britt Griffin is playing hooky from work in Cobalt to tune in. We won't tell the boss. That's perfectly okay. I would have said you shouldn't be working on St. Patrick's Day, but of course, some people have to work on St. Patrick's Day. Denise Carly, even, I apologize. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you, Denise. Archaeoastronomy Database is already here. It is here twice. Well, good. Happy St. Patrick's Day to both of you. Mandy McCurl is giving it to us in Irish. Banachti Féile Fórig Orav. Brilliant stuff. Blessings of the Festival of Patrick to all of you. Sue Prenter, love the face paint. I definitely think there's a line of business there for my daughter Tara, definitely. Julianne Osborne, hello Julianne, happy St. Patrick's Day to you. I hope you are keeping well. Lexi Erickson is saying happy St. Patrick's Day from snowy Denver. 8 inches so far. Do you know what? It was a beautiful day. Now it's cloudy at the moment, but we had the parade in Drogheda at 12 o'clock today. There were throngs of people. It's the first time we've been able to have a parade since 2019. It was a super atmosphere. Everybody seemed to have enjoyed it immensely. Adina Sparks, happy St. Patrick's Day, Anthony, and to all our Tua around the world. Yes, indeed, Adina, many happy returns. John Main is saying, Banach to everyone, welcome to this extra episode of Mythology Flicks. Looking forward to learning more mythology today. Brilliant stuff, John. Good to see you. John is in Belmullet in County Mayo. Wayne Bird, a warm welcome to Anthony and all. Yes, indeed, Wayne, it is good to see you again. Lillian Cruz is in Rio in Brazil. Very greeny decoration you have over there. We make every effort. No expense spared. Who was it said that? Was Richard Attenborough's character in Jurassic Park. No expense spared. Spared no expense. Doris O'Hara is wishing everyone a St. Patrick's Day, a happy St. Patrick's Day, even many happy returns. And Scott Doherty is thanking us for the bonus episode. Well, hopefully you'll thank me at the end as well, and that you find it interesting enough. Tinkle Tink, I actually don't get into what the snakes represent today, but yes, one of the many theories about that is that the snake represented wisdom, but there is a psychological essence to it. There are snakes and serpents and dragons in mythology in all over the world, and one of the thoughts is that it is the dark creature of the unconscious. But yeah, maybe it symbolized the druids and their wisdom. Eilish McInerney is sharing a shamrock with us. Thank you, Eilish. Hope you are well. Lex Erickson, love your face. They were talking about doing a big shamrock on my forehead. I said, no. My wife was egging Tara on a little bit. It's like, no, just 2 little ones will do fine. Thank you. Kelly Nikiali, happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Erica Humberducey is in Ipswich in the UK. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you, Erica. Deirdre Chestnut, many happy returns. You're very welcome. Kevin Williams is saying good day from Melbourne, Australia. Oh my God, it must be the early hours of the morning over there. It has to be like 3 or 4 a.m. Kevin, thank you for making the effort. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you, which was yesterday for you, but still today here in the Western Hemisphere. Hope you're keeping well. Oswald Spengler. Wow, we are truly blessed to have the author of The Decline of the West in amongst the audience. Hello, Oswald Spengler. Kaylee During is saying, that's kind of you. Well, it's the truth. Helen also likes the face paint. Nice job, Tara. I must remember to tell her afterwards. Caris Peel says, happy St. Patrick's Day. Many happy returns and welcome. Clara Garvey is sharing shamrocks. We love shamrocks. Not four-leaved clovers, by the way, which many people mistake as the symbol. Brian Baru says, spare a thought for Palladius today. History is written by the victor. Poor Palladius kind of gets shoved into the corner, doesn't he? Debbie Stom is saying, blessings from California. A very good morning to you, Debbie, from the Boyne Valley. Wazzy is whose Lois is in Louisiana. Hello, Lois. You're very, very welcome to Live Irish Myths. Kerem Gogus is here. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Kerem. Hope you are downing lots of pints of Guinness, green Guinness, or doing something suitably Irish. Julianne Osborne is wearing her swan pendant. Beauty from lovely Tom King. Brilliant stuff. Don't forget, you want to get your own. That is mythicalireland.com is the website, and go to the gallery and shop and look for Ongova Creations. Aaron Durrett is in the house. Daffodils and shamrocks showering on you for St. Pat's. Dear Anthony, and to a brilliant stuff, Aaron. What a delight and pleasure to see you, as it always is. Daisy Peters is in the house. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Daisy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Alwyn Roy Badziak. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Many, many happy returns, Alwyn. Candace Hamilton Bohonic. Happy St. Patrick's Day from the Seattle area. Brilliant stuff. I always say, Pacific Northwest, same climate as Ireland. You might as well be in Ireland. Rowan Grove is in snowy Denver. I had crocuses yesterday, but snow this morning. Wow. And we had, 11 or 12 degrees Celsius with sunshine today. We were very lucky because at 6:20 this morning, it was raining very heavily, but thankfully it passed quickly. Karen Hart, broccoli, because I couldn't find a shamrock. I love it. Thank you, Karen. Look, it's the thought that counts, and it's green, you know. I can't pronounce your name, but apparently you just found my YouTube channel. Such amazing content. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Well, welcome to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and enjoy. Definitely enjoy. You're very welcome here. Chana Gray is in Arizona. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you, Chana. Salav is in the house. Jeez, you must be supping strange old stuff. No, totally sober so far, but I do intend to rectify that later. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Salav. Michael Ward is in Selbridge in Kildare, wishing everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day. Many happy returns. Mona Lee Peterson, also likewise, a very happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Dave Sadler is saying happy St. Patrick's Day from the Archaeology and Metal Detecting magazine. Fantastic stuff, Dave. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you, and many, many happy archaeological discoveries to you and all of your readers. Kathy May Deo says happy St. Patrick's Day to her and Mr. Anthony. Kathy May, thank you, and many happy returns. You're very welcome. Liam Smith says, Law, Fela, Porrig, Hannah, Anthony, looking good today in the parade. Thank you, Liam. Looking good. The main thing is that you have to sound good. Hopefully that you enjoyed the few tunes that we were knocking out, including Ireland's Call. Marie McMarrow is just hopping in to wish you a happy St. Patrick's Day from Jacksonville, Florida. The most sunny day of this week. Yeah, same here. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Marie. You're very welcome. Valentina Bernardi, many happy returns to you. Thank you for joining. Madison, I think you should dress up like this for every episode. I was trying to get a funny hat, but it didn't happen. But look, next time. Paula Snow Queen is in the house, waving. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Paula. Valerie Gallagher, who shares some of the responsibility for today's live stream. As I was explaining at the beginning, we were chatting up on the Hill of Slane the other day, and all these things were swirling around in my head. And I said to Valerie, a lot of this is still in my head. I think I should write it down. I wrote it down, and I will read it shortly. Mariana wants to know if we have any film of the parade. Yes, there is. There are some clips on Facebook. If you insist, I might share one to the Mythical Ireland community later on. But I really, yes, I will. But I mean, at the same time, I'm a little bit embarrassed. Helen is saying, if you're actually in the Black Hills in Lakota, the name is properly changed to the Green Hills. Black from a distance, but green pines close up. So we're green. Wow. Fascinating. Brilliant. Darren Greenidge is in Old Reekie. Hope you're having a lovely day. Grand so far. Did have a little bit of a moment when I come home from the parade to find certain individuals complaining about censorship on the Mythical Ireland community because their post was deleted. Oh, anyway, other than that, grand. Robin Edgar, I was boiling water to make a pot of tea, but I think you managed to twist my rubber arm into pulling out a can of Guinness from my fridge instead. Whatever excuse you need. Robin, happy St. Patrick's Day and Irish Equal Night Equinox, and many happy returns to you. Christina Kerwin, Irish Technical Thinker, I apologise. Marcus, happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Christina Kerwin, many happy returns. Hope you're having a great day. Jim Shine is in Indianapolis. Jim, a very, very happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Thank you for joining in. Brian Baru says there are some famous people here indeed. To which he adds, including me. Now there's an Irish sense of humour. Kathleen Gallagher loves the face paint. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you also, Kathleen. Valerie, listening as I look over the Boyne and Newgrange. Oh, you're still in Leck Farm. Oh, what a view, huh? Couldn't you just stay there forever, couldn't you? Patrick Lang, I don't know what you're trying to say. Maybe, if you give it to us in English. I might understand. Charlie Wilson, what snake? Indeed. Chungus Khan says happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. Many happy returns. David Roach is wishing us a happy St. Patrick's Day from snowy Colorado. Very much enjoying your book, Mythical Ireland, New Light in the Ancient Past. Thanks for the great work. Glad you're enjoying it, David, and a pleasure. Absolutely. Sheila Murphy Weekly is in West Virginia in the USA. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you, Sheila. Elaine Dent Lingenfelter. Oh, I found you, Anthony. Did a leprechaun tattoo your face? No, my daughter Tara, but close, Yeah. I just said, to get into the spirit of things and have a bit of fun. Teresa Conway is in Sligo. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Teresa. Thank you for joining us. Isabel, is it Draken or Draken in Yorkshire, England? Happy St. Patrick's Day to you, Isabel. You're very welcome to Live Irish Myths. Is it Iona Mishu? Happy St. Patrick's Day from Bulgaria. Very, very special. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you, Iona. Thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow for my writing class, I'm presenting St. Bridget, so the celebration continues. Brilliant stuff, Robin, and good luck with that. SGD says, happy St. Patrick's Day from California. Good morning to all our Californian and West Coast friends. Speaking of the West Coast, Teresa is in Oregon. Well, Teresa and Mark, a very happy St. Patrick's Day to you both. Hope you have a great day. Julie M., America's public school children celebrate St. Patrick's Day by building traps for leprechauns and baiting them with gold coins. Yes, I don't think you'll find leprechauns in the hagiographies, but it's a perfectly acceptable behaviour to celebrate the day. Teresa is saying, happy St. Patrick's Day, we miss Ireland. Well, I can understand that. And aren't I lucky to live here? Catherine Woodruff is in Chile, Wisconsin. A very happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Catherine Henry Macaulay is in the Isle of Giga and is wishing us all a happy St. Patrick's Day. Many happy returns, Henry. Deirdre Nichochon is in Mexico. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you, Deirdre. Very, very nice to see you. And somebody is watching from Siberia. Love your channel. Brilliant stuff. And of course, I would expect it to be snowy in Siberia. A very happy St. Patrick's Day to you. cannot pronounce your name because I don't know Cyrillic lettering, but perhaps if you could give that to us in our own lettering, I might be able to say hello to you. But I do apologize for that. Trina Nierk just finished recording a little song for the occasion. Brilliant stuff. Hope you might be able to share that with us later. Trina, happy St. Patrick's Day. Helena Breen, many happy returns to you. Phoenix Aurelius is in the house. Banachti Nafela Forig Orav. Glad to be able to join you live, Phoenix. What a great pleasure and many happy returns. I hope you're having a great St. Patrick's Day. Royal Hill of Tara Ranger, whose name is Paul, was up at the Hill of Tara, quite sober. Going to head out for a walk with the dog along the Boyne here in Navan. Then might go for a pint afterwards. Who's about? Well, enjoy it. Katie Brogan is saying happy St. Patrick's Day. Thank you for being so informative and entertaining. Well, I'm glad that you find the talks entertaining, because that's very important, isn't it? Crucial aspect of the Shanachie. Shanna Gray is saying that my mother's maiden name was Ireland. Brilliant. What a beautiful name. And Phoenix reminds us that he's joining from Lomond Dale, which is in Utah. Brilliant stuff. Good morning and happy St. Patrick's Day, Phoenix. Teresa Conway is wondering whether St. Patrick ever was on Croagh Patrick. Well, we will talk a little bit about Croagh Patrick and the traditions of that, and I suppose you can make your own mind up. Barbara Murphy says, happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone from Tucson. I'm in my lucky short with bright green shamrock beads, and Master Yoda has his green beads around his neck too. Brilliant stuff. I think I've caught up on all the comments. Have I? No, I haven't, just when I thought I had. Faye Maggie is in Vancouver Island. Happy St. Patrick's Day. A very good morning, Faye. Deborah Williams, happy corned beef, carrots, cabbage and potato day. I'll have that any day of the week. Carmel O'Dwyer, happy St. Patrick's Day, Anthony. Love the face painting. Thank you, Carmel. You're very welcome. And Apple369 is also in Vancouver in Canada. I miss Ireland very much. I can understand why. So, as I said, Jeannie Macris, it's 23 minutes past 5 already. We haven't even started yet. So, as I said, was with Valerie on Monday, was talking about all this stuff. And then I said, a lot of it's in my head. Some of it's in my books, but a lot of it's in my head, and I should write it down. And sure, lo and behold, what did I do? I got the typewriter out, and over the last few days, I have been typing what is to follow. So I hope you enjoy this. So this is new material. In other words, it's new from me. Some of it is already in some of my books, particularly Island of the Setting Sun and the Mythical Ireland book. But a lot of it is new material, new thoughts around St. Patrick. Because, I couldn't let the occasion go by just doing what we did last year, which was to just recite some of the traditions. Look, you'll hear it when I read it, but one of the problems with dealing with Patrick is that previous authors in previous generations have written about Patrick from a very pious point of view as Catholics and as believers, not necessarily questioning those aspects, which do seem, in fairness, quite fantastic. We're going to look at some of those fantastic aspects and episodes. Pardon me, quite windy. I do apologize. So this I have called Some Thoughts on the Myths of St. Patrick. And the introduction is very important because I do want to say at the outset, it is not my intention today to offend or upset anybody who is Catholic or Christian or who believes in St. Patrick. That is not my intention, and I don't think that I have done so. Bear with me anyway, and I hope that you enjoy what is to follow. What time are we on? 24 minutes, okay. So the introduction kind of spells that out. The following is not meant to represent a thesis or monograph, but is rather an attempt to open a discussion about certain aspects of the story of St. Patrick. I will also say that I'm not the first one to have done that. I'm not seeing any new comments. I'm just wondering, I hope we're not having a freeze, are we? If somebody would comment from YouTube and somebody from Facebook just to let us know that the stream is still okay. There has been no new comments. There's one from Julie M. Okay, I think we're okay. All right. And in saying what I've just said, all good here. Brilliant stuff. Thanks, folks. I'm not the first one to do this. And there are other specialists and scholars and authors who have explored the theme of the mythological aspects of St. Patrick. Andrew Ward is saying hello from Nashville in Tennessee. Andrew, a very good St. Patrick's Day to you. I am not an expert on Patrick. Oh, that's great. Everybody is happy. That's grand. I'm not an expert on Patrick and present the following merely as an introductory preamble. Without footnotes or bibliographical references, I may add those later if I publish this in some form, to perhaps a more scholarly discussion of same at some point in the future. Having said that, a lot of this is based on proper sources, obviously. I didn't make it up, and I would be happy to present those at some point. Having been born and raised in the Boyne Valley, I am intensely aware of Patrick's supposed influence on not just the history of that valley, but in fact the ecclesiastical narrative of the entire island. He is, after all, credited with bringing Christianity to this country. Some of the books I have read about St. Patrick, which are mostly written by religious scholars, i.e. believers, tend to treat the material reverentially and accept. I do apologise for the screaming. Apparently the festivities have already begun in the house. Tend to treat the material reverentially and accept the accounts of Patrick's life and mission as inherited and unimpeachable truths. All this, despite the fact that, truth be told, the known historical facts of St. Patrick could be written on the back of a postage stamp, while those details and aspects of his story that might be deemed mythological or downright fantastic would fill many volumes. I can't remember where I first read that or heard that, but that was something I read or heard or watched on TV years ago, that the known facts of St. Patrick's life could be written on the back of a postage stamp, while his folklore would fill many volumes. I have no wish to deprive Irish Christianity of its pioneering apostle, and it is not the aim of anything I write here to offend or disrespect the faithful sensitivities of adherents to Christianity, or those to whom Patrick remains a figure of worship and faith. Sandrine Brady is having a nice beer with some friends. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Sandrine. Hope you enjoy that. Paul Greystone is in Lurkistan. Is that lurking in the background? Happy St. Patrick's Day. Just making sure I didn't miss any new arrivals. My aim here is merely to examine and consider specific aspects of the story of his arrival to the Boyne Valley from a secular or objective standpoint, and in particular to scrutinize these characteristics of his story by highlighting their mythological traits and comparing those with the pre-Christian traditions of the area. With apologies. Nothing in this short exploration of Patrick's story will, I hope, diminish his standing as a figure who commands great love and devotion from Irish people all over the world. My interest in the matter was piqued more than 20 years ago, during the early days of my research with Richard Moore for our book, Island of the Setting Sun. Although I'm sure I had been taught the fact in school, it still seemed quite surprising to me that St. Patrick and Amergin, the bard of the Milesians, had arrived in Ireland at the same locale. And sorry, I'm just going to mute the. How do I do that? Yeah, I'm just going to turn off. Facebook is pinging away in the background here, and make sure my my phone is on silent. Grand, that's sorted. Thank you for your patience. Yes, St. Patrick and Amergin, who was the bard of the Milesians, arrived in Ireland at the same locale. Both of these important figures in the story of Ireland had put to shore their boats at Culpa, the estuary of the Boyne, and stepped foot into Ireland just a couple of miles downstream of and in line of sight of the place where I had grown up in Drogheda. Amergin was the bard and spiritual figurehead of a band of 12 brothers from Spain who had come to wrest the land of Ireland from the Tuatha De Danann, the deities who were said to have been involved in the building of the great monuments of Brunabonia, located between 6 and 8 miles as the crow flies upstream of the place where Amergin was said to have come ashore. Caitlin Moon is in the house. Very happy St. Patrick's Day to you, Caitlin. You're very welcome to the live stream. Although the account of the arrival of the Milesians is considered pseudo-historical, the annals of the Four Masters suggest Amergin and his brothers arrived in the year 1700 BC, placing them in the Bronze Age, more than 2 millennia before the coming of St. Patrick to the same spot. Amergin's disembarkation at the Boyne estuary represented a second landing of the Milesians, and for the purposes of brevity, it is not necessary here to provide a comprehensive account of the narrative as it is presented in Lawer Gawala Éireann, otherwise known as the Book of Invasions. So I will give a very brief summary of that. The Milesians landed in Inverscania in the southwest. They made their way inland, and among the things that happened were that Amergin directly engaged in some diplomacy, as it were, with the tutelary or guardian goddesses Banba, Fola, and Eru. He met the latter, Eru, at Ishnach, and she said to him, each of them had said to him in turn, if you name the country after me, we'll let you arrive. They went to Tara, and the 3 reigning De Danann kings, Macul, Macecht, and Magrania, reached a pact with the Milesians. They said, look, you go back out to sea, and in a distance of 9 waves, and if you can make it back to land, we'll let you have it. Of course, Amergin, on behalf of the Milesians, said this was a fair judgment and agreed to it. They went back out, and the De Dananns raised a tempest and a storm and tossed the ships all over the place. And they had great difficulty landing again, but they landed in the Boyne estuary, and that was their second coming, as it were. But that was the point at which they had basically overcome the De Dananns. The Milesians had been successful in their attempt to colonise Ireland, and when Amergin stepped ashore, his coming represented the ascendancy of the new colonisers after some amount of diplomacy and warfare. The coming of the Milesians has been described as the conquest of the gods by mortals. The Tuatha De Danann agreed to keep their side of the bargain. Now, Coda is making his voice heard. Everybody wants to celebrate St. Patrick's Day today. The Tuatha De Danann agreed to keep their side of the bargain and ventured off into the subterranean otherworld by means of the mounds they had built called the She, of which Newgrange, Knowth and Douth were the largest and most ostentatious exemplars. While it is not necessarily framed as a spiritual conquest, the fact that the Milesians were dispossessing the deities of the land of Ireland naturally lends itself to the idea that there was a religious aspect to their mission. As he placed his foot upon the shore of Inverculpa, Amergin chanted a poem which is well known and widely quoted in literature about the mythology and history of the Celtic world. It represented an epochal declaration, an acknowledgement of the ascendancy of the newcomers, and the beginning of a new chapter in the cosmology of the Irish people. And when I say cosmology here, I'm referring to mythological cosmology, cosmology being the traditions about where you came from, where the world came from, where we all originate. Sorry, I lost my place and I will find it now momentarily. And the beginning of a new chapter in the cosmology of the Irish people, for whom
The Vikings in Ireland too.
I have no idea what happened there. I didn't press anything. I do apologise. Perhaps before I proceed, if everybody would let me know that everything's okay. Damn. Don't know what happened there. I will give it a moment before. Okay. A few people saying lost you. Julie M is saying back. Am I back on both YouTube and Facebook? Back again. Okay. I have no idea what happened there, folks. I do apologise. Literally, my screen went blank and a voice started reading out Live Irish Myths episode 173. No idea whatsoever what happened there. It was the leprechauns. It was the St. Patrick's Day gremlins. So just in case, I will just reread the previous sentence, just in case we missed that. It represented an epochal declaration, an acknowledgement of the ascendancy of the newcomers, and the beginning of a new chapter in the cosmology of the Irish people, for whom the Gael, i.e. the Milesians, have long been considered the first ancestors. Reading an account of the arrival of St. Patrick to the River Boyne, in or around the year 2000, that's when I was reading it, not when it happened, I wondered if it was purely coincidental that the saint made land at the very same place as the Milesians had done some 21 centuries or so previously. For a long time, Declan Cleary is saying hello from Chile. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Declan. And no, Robin, I won't use the F word. Don't worry. Ooh. For a long time, many years in fact, the question remained on my mind. Unable to answer it conclusively or satisfactorily, I was content to leave the matter sit, at least until such time that some material from historical or mythological literature could bring some clarity to the question. Now, years later, and after much reading and consideration, while I find that I am unable to offer any single piece of evidence that would conclusively answer the question, I find myself better positioned to offer a little insight into the matter. They say that history repeats itself. My experience is that mythology does too. Robert Friend wants to know if I'm feeling okay. He says I look a little bit green around the gills. The arrival of the Milesians did not occur without complications. The sea tempest that had been aroused by the Dedanans to thwart the second arrival of the Spanish invaders had led to the destruction of some of their ships and the drowning of some of their companies. One of the casualties, according to some branches of tradition, was Culpa the swordsman, one of Amergin's brothers, who, having been drowned, was buried in a mound not far from the Boyne, where the survivors of the expedition had landed. This mound, according to local tradition, is situated in the parish or townland of Cope, Colpe, south of the river, and the place name mythology of the metrical Dinchanicus suggests that it is from the drowning of Culpa that the name Inverculpa is derived. With the caveat that, as is typical of the Dinchanicus, there is a second, altogether different tradition suggesting that Inverculpa got its name from the culpa or thigh bone of a great monster, the Mata, that had been killed and dismembered at Newgrange. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Sylvia Sanchez. You're very welcome to Live Irish Myths. Hope you're keeping well. Another drowning in the Boyne is recalled in Achalov na Shnorach, the colloquy of the old men or the colloquy of the ancients, in which the Boyne estuary is called Inver Bic Lungshi, which we are told derived its name from Beg Lugshach, son of Arist, that was drowned in it. Sorry, I should have said that was a quote. Quote, Beg Lugshach, son of Arist, that was drowned in it, unquote. Arist, we are further told, was the son of the king of the Romans, who had come to invade Ireland, but had been drowned by a tidal wave at the mouth of the Boyne. Hang on a second, just need to take a margin note here. Because what I forgot to mention was that the Milesians were said to have been the sons of the King of Spain. So Arist was the son of the King of the Romans who had come to invade Ireland, but had been drowned by a tidal wave at the mouth of the Boyne. Such were the similarities between the stories of Culpa and Arist, I wrote in my Mythical Ireland book, that the parallels were indeed so striking as to lead one to the tentative conclusion that they were, in fact, two versions, quote, of a single old mythic narrative involving the naming of the Boyne estuary, unquote. An extension of that line of inquiry led me to question whether the stories of the landing of Amergin and St. Patrick at the same spot might have been just two renderings or adaptations of a single myth. If that at first seems fantastic or far-fetched, then please bear with me. There are several threads which need to be disentangled, and I hope that in doing so, we can at least undertake a comparative exercise with a view to considering the similarities in the diverse stories, while also recognizing the yawning disparities between them. It seems to have been the intention of St. Patrick, after he had sailed down the coast from Northern Ireland and landed at Inverculpa, to go and treat with the High King, Lera, with a view to gaining his assent or sanction for the establishment of a Christian settlement in the vicinity of Tara, the political capital of Ireland. If he could not succeed in obtaining this approval, he would at least aim to pay Lera the courtesy of a visit, so as not to make the High King an active opponent of his mission. So you see, even in the early days of the church, in Ireland specifically, but in general, there was politics and diplomacy, you know. The events that transpired upset this crucial goal of the mission. But it is sufficient to point out that Patrick's intention was to establish his principal church as close as possible to Tara. In this regard, he would be instinctually following the conventions of the Roman Empire, in which the, quote, administrative divisions in the political order determined to a large extent the religious, unquote. Martha Kelleher McElhone is in the house. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Hope you are in great form and enjoying the festivities. Following their arrival, the Milesians set about choosing the location for their seat of political authority in Ireland. And not surprisingly, the place that was chosen was Drumcoin, the beautiful ridge, which was later to be named Tara, according to the Dinshanicus, after the wife of the first Milesian king, Erimone, who had chosen the hill for them and who was later to be buried there, her burial mound giving rise to the name Tara, Tia Wur, the rampart of Tia. Now, her name is spelled Tea, which you would be inclined to think of in terms of a cup of tea, but in Irish, I'm pretty sure that would be pronounced Tia. In both cases, the Milesians and St. Patrick, the Boyne estuary provided the most convenient point of access or ingress to Tara. But it was a symbolically important location for other reasons too. Its proximity to the Brunabonia complex is undoubtedly significant. Some of the principal figureheads of the Daedanans are intimately associated with the giant monuments of the Boyne, most notably Dagda, their chief or king, who was said to have been the builder of Sheed and Broga, Newgrange, and its first inhabitant. Other deities in the pantheon associated with Brunabonia in myth include Elkmar, and this is not an exhaustive list, Elkmar, Bowen, Angus, Manannán, Bui, Englec, and Mór Riogan, among others, and Morrigan being a variant of the name Morrigan. Amergan's triumphant disembarkation on the shore at Inver Culpa was imbued with symbolic importance. He was landing in the territory of those he had come to subdue, and it would be into those very she-mounds that the Tuatha De Danann would have to retreat upon the arrival of the Milesian horde. The gods were being subjugated, and their successors had landed in the very river that bore the name of the principal female deity associated with the complex, Boyne. A day's travel upriver would bring the Milesians within sight of the hill of Tara, where they would install the first in a long line of human or mortal high kings. And the reason I say that, mortal or human, is because Tara had already been associated with kingship for the De Dananns since the time of their battles of Moitura, when Nuadu of the Silver Arm had celebrated his return to the throne with a feast on the sacred hill. Although landing much later, Patrick may well have found the names of some of the old De Danann gods still on the lips of the local population. They may have been subdued by the Milesians in mythology, but they had not been completely overthrown, and it may well have been the case that a belief in the De Dananns was one of the principal manifestations of the sort of pagan belief that Patrick had come to supplant. The longevity of the traditions associated with the old gods was such that, as late as the 19th century, Newgrange was still referred to by its much older pre-Cistercian names. A brief interlude there, just to explain that the name Newgrange, as I have said and written about, but some of you may not know this, was the name given to the place by the Cistercians, that order of monks who had come to establish Mellifont Abbey in the year 1142. This is the 12th century AD. They established granges or farms in the area. They had been granted land by the local king, Donogha O'Carroll, and I think it was it thousands of acres of land. And among the place names that survive from the Cistercian settlement of the area are Newgrange, Rough Grange, Sheep Grange, and Little Grange. The Grange being the important grange, the word for a Cistercian farm. But what I'm saying is that in the 19th century, the 1800s, people were still referring to the field in which Newgrange stood as the Bro Park. It retained some aspects of its old names. For reasons that are not sufficiently explained, St. Patrick chose to go to the Hill of Slane by road, probably to meet some Christians who were already in the district. In so doing, Patrick sidestepped or avoided his diplomatic mission to Lera, the king, and his ensuing actions ensured a dramatic confrontation with the High King. It is a curious coincidence that the custom of lighting an Easter fire of sorts was already prevalent in Ireland, for on the 25th of March each year, a great assembly was held at Tara to mark the quote-unquote birthday of the year, the rebirth of vegetation. I'll take a pause for a moment just to make sure I haven't missed anyone. Charlotte Rose, you're very welcome. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Longbow is saying hello from the UK. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Are you anything to Strongbow? Never mind. For a stupid joke on my part. Karen Murphy Beglin says happy St. Patrick's Day. Many happy returns. Brilliant stuff. The fact that this celebration coincided with the time of the vernal equinox is likely to have been very important. One of the ceremonies of this assembly was the striking forth of new fire by the Druids of Tara, which was accompanied by a very important stipulation that no fire should be lit in Éire until this quote-unquote Easter fire was first seen on the heights of Tara. The penalty for breaching this sacred custom was death. And I should explain that custom of those spring or equinox or Easter fires was prevalent all across pre-Christian Europe. Erica Bowes in the house. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Erica. Hope you're keeping well. Kate O'Neill is saying hi from Port Loriga. Great stuff, Anthony. Hope you're enjoying it, Kate. It happened that on the year of his mission to on the year of his mission to Ireland, Easter fell on the 26th of March. That's Easter Sunday. And Patrick chose Slane as the location where it would be celebrated in full view of the king and the Druids at Tara, less than 10 miles away to the south. So when you're at Tara, as on Monday evening with Valerie, I pointed out Tara and Slane are intervisible. The Paschal Fire itself was lit by Saint Cianan, who had just been ordained as the first Christian priest in Ireland by Patrick. Of course, that's according to tradition. It is now believed that Christianity had already existed in Ireland for at least, perhaps up to a century before the arrival of Patrick. There was something else I was going to add in there. Yeah, I should also say, I'm not sure whether it's explicitly said in this, but Patrick, the fire was lit on the eve of Easter Sunday, the vigil, as it were. So it would have been lit on Saturday, the 25th of March. That's why the contention arose. Just in case you're confused and you're saying, hang on, the king lit the Easter fire at Tara on the 25th, but Easter Sunday was on the 26th. How was Patrick's lighting of the fire going to cause any difficulty? Because it was lit by St. Cianan. Ironically, a lot of people think St. Patrick lit the Paschal Fire. Look, he was involved in it, of course, and he didn't say to St. Cianan, don't do that, but it was actually St. Cianan who lit the fire. St. Cianan is celebrated in Duleek, Dowleague, where we have the oldest, or reputed to be the oldest, stone church in Ireland. One detail omitted in the official accounts of St. Patrick's mission to Ireland is the fact that, in addition to being visible from Tara, the Easter fire could also be easily seen from the great monuments of Brú-na-Bóinne, which lie much closer to Slane at a distance of between 2 and 4 miles, and which are overlooked by the Great Hill. In other words, Patrick was bringing his Christian fire right into the heart of the ancient and venerated landscape of the pagans, with their political capital to the south and the remnants of their greatest necropolis and religious temples close by to the east. Surely this was the reason St. Patrick chose Slane. And actually, when you stand on the hill of Slane and you look towards Tara and you look towards Brú-na-Bóinne, you begin to see the very obvious political reasons. He was making a grand statement before the very eyes of the heathens, right in the centre of their spiritual heartland. As the fire blazed atop Slane on that Easter vigil, the king and his retinue would have been able to see, in the twilight sky above the glowing flame, the stars of the constellation Cygnus, that great crucifix of the heavens, emerging in the growing dark of night. This fact is not mentioned in any of the hagiographies, but its symbolic and portentous significance is clear. The cross, whose shape had been incorporated into the design of the ancient stone chambers where the ancestors were buried, now took on an entirely new meaning and significance. And for some exploration of that theme, see my book Island of the Setting Sun, where I talk about the fact that Angus Mac-an-Og may have been Angus, the son of the Virgin, and his shape at Newgrange was the cross long before Christianity. I mean, more than 3,500 years previously. But Slane is a significant location for other reasons, which may directly link it astronomically with the story of Patrick's Easter fire. 21 years ago, in the year 2001, I visited the very well-known Cairn T at Slieve-na-Collia, Loch Crew, one of a large cluster of Neolithic passage tombs or chambered cairns situated on the peaks of 4 hills in the far northwestern corner of County Meath. Of course, I have been back many, many times since then. The purpose of the visit was to obtain some good photographs of the megalithic art inscribed on many of the stones in the interior of Cairn T. The cairn is well known for its alignment towards the sunrises on the vernal and autumnal equinoxes. On those mornings, the light of the rising sun shines into the furthest recess of the chamber of Cairn T, brilliantly and beautifully illuminating the emblems picked onto the surface of a stone at its rear. The ceiling stone of this recess is also beautifully illuminated at equinox, and the whole thing makes for a very moving visual spectacle, imbued with the additional significance that it has been functioning this way for well over 5,000 years. One of the things I decided to do that day was to clamber over the sill stone and climb into that recess with the intention of capturing a photograph of the view from its interior. Valerie Gallagher was at Cairn T this morning. Brilliant stuff. Hope you looked onto the distant horizon to see the Hill of Slane. So the idea was to capture a photograph of the view from sitting in that recess, looking out along the passage through the entrance. What I saw astonished me and was quite unexpected. In the far distance, framed by the stones of the entrance of this ancient tomb, was the Hill of Slane. I hadn't read about this curious circumstance in any book and considered it to be very significant. The accounts of St. Patrick's mission to Ireland mention that Slane was the location of Ferta Fer Feach, the graves of the men of Feach. On the summit of the Hill of Slane, concealed and shrouded by trees, is a mound said to be a moat, one of those castellated or defended structures built by the Anglo-Normans during the early years of their occupation of Ireland. And of course, that was circa late 12th, early 13th century AD. It is almost certainly the case that in many instances the Normans did not raise a mound upon which to build their fortifications, but merely repurposed or refashioned existing pre-Norman mounds for this purpose. The very name of Slane is said to be derived, according to the Dinshanicus, from the Firvolg king Sláine, who reigned over the largest of the 5 provinces into which Ireland had been partitioned by the Firvolg. Making sure. Roberto, hello and happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Nora Gaffney O'Connor is late. I suppose you're forgiven. It is St. Patrick's Day after all. I mean, you know, if you were out guzzling pints or swimming in the sea, and I'll totally forgive you for that. In any case, you can watch this back again afterwards. You're very welcome, Nora. I hope you're having a great St. Patrick's Day. The Dinshanicus says that Sláine had arranged for the wood to be cleared from the brew, presumably meaning Brú na Bóinne, but it does not tell us why, leading us to speculate that it may have been for the introduction of agriculture and or for the purpose of building the great monuments there. Afterwards, the Dinshanicus poem Sláine relates, quote, he died at Drim Fuair, the cold ridge, which is called Dua Sláine, and he was buried there. And from him the hill is named Sláine. Hence it was said, here died Sláine, lord of troops. Over him the mighty mound is raised. So the name of Sláine was given to the hill, where he met his death in that chief abode. Unquote. That's interesting. what the Denchenicus says is that Tara, before it was called after Tia, it was known as Drum Coin, the beautiful ridge. Slane was known as Drum 4, which means the cold hill, the cold ridge. And Fornox, we know, is na Forknoik, which means the cold hills. Interesting. I'm inclined to think that some of those, I used to think that Fornox must have had a different name in relation to, a deity or something. And that's something we did talk about in previous live streams. Anyway, I won't get distracted because we could go down that rabbit hole and we might not be able to get back out of that for a few hours. So that mighty mound that's mentioned in the Denchenicus, we might speculate, is the same one that stands today on the peak of the Hill of Slane. Were it not for the fact that were it not for the... Try again, Anthony. Sober up. God help you. Were it not for the trees that shroud the summit of the hill today, that mound would be clearly visible from the end recess of the chamber of Cairn T. In other words, from inside Cairn T, looking out on the morning of the equinox, or looking out any day of the year, you'll be able to see the Hill of Slane and its mound. Perhaps there is room here for a reconsideration of the story of the Easter fire at Slane. The celebration of Easter is determined by astronomical means and is intimately tied with the date of spring equinox. T.M. Charles Edwards, in his book Early Christian Ireland, tells us that, quote, Easter is a spring festival tied to the vernal equinox, and also a lunar festival tied to the date of the full moon, unquote. The correct way of determining the date of Easter caused considerable controversy in the early Irish Church, a dispute that was not finally resolved until 716 AD. Cairn T tells us that the mound building farmers of the Irish Neolithic managed to get a good fix on the date of the equinox, some 3.5 millennia before the arrival of Christianity. They did this by visual means, calculating the halfway point, measured in days, between winter and summer solstices, and orienting the passage of Cairn T in such a direction as to directly capture the light of the rising sun on the equinox as it climbed into the sky above Slane. Nora Gaffney says, I love the rabbit hole. The modern definitions of equinox as either the time when the sun crosses the celestial equator or the time when day and night are of equal length would not have been calculable to a Neolithic skywatcher who possessed no means of computing or measuring these things. They may have been able to determine the directions of due east and due west, where the sun rises and sets on the equinox, but Cairn T is not aligned towards due east, on account of the fact that the builders needed to allow the sun some time to climb to a sufficient altitude to allow a more brilliant illumination of the interior. This is rather clever, because at Newgrange, the sun, when it rises nearly at 9 o'clock on winter solstice, has already climbed above the far horizon, but the near horizon has Red Mountain Hill blocking its first 10 or 15 minutes. And of course, at the point at which it has risen to come up over Red Mountain, it is far more bright and brilliant than when it initially rises on the horizon. For that reason, Cairn T is aligned 4.5 degrees south of east, so that by the time the equinox sun has gained sufficient altitude to brightly illuminate the stone at the end of the far recess, it is situated brilliantly above the Hill of Slane as viewed from that stone. Is this stunning visual phenomenon an ancient precursor to the Paschal Fire at Slane? Is it possible that the mound on Slane, the one referred to as Dua Sláine in the Denchenicus, is in fact a prehistoric burial mound, and perhaps even a passage tomb as old as those of Brúnaboine and Slíomhna-Caille, as Richard Moore and I have previously speculated? These are questions that cannot be answered definitively at this point. A non-invasive survey of the Slane moat some years ago, using ground-penetrating archaeological technology, was not able to sufficiently resolve the question of whether there are cavities, i.e. possible passages and chambers, in its interior. Regardless of the age of the mound on its summit, it is clear that Cairn T was deliberately aligned towards Slane for the equinox sunrises. Erica River Trees in the house from Louisville, Kentucky. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Erica. You're very welcome. Donna Ferrer has been able to pop in for a few minutes. Brilliant stuff. And the question about Aaron's question about how do you measure equinox accurately when it's so hard to tell which is the central standstill of the solstices, it's not difficult because the sun actually stands still visually for about 5 days. You know, it really doesn't move in any way that you could determine with the naked eye. So all you need is one clear day in 5, basically. But yeah, I get what you're saying. You also use the moon. That's a whole rabbit hole, but the moon is very, very important in calculating days and times and keeping an eye on how the solar and lunar year coalesce. Because they don't, basically, they're out of kilter with each other, but they come back into sync after 19 years, the golden cycle or the Metonic cycle. And you must absolutely keep reference to both of those. But a very, very, very good question. And thank you for asking it. Don't forget that because of the leap year phenomenon, Archaeoastronomy database is sort of hinting towards that. An extra day has to be added every year, otherwise you're out of sequence. The story of Patrick's arrival at Slane and the subsequent lighting of the fire there consists of so much mythological fabric as to make it difficult to disentangle the facts from the fable. There is further intrigue in the story, as we shall see. While the biographies seem silent on the matter of why Patrick chose Slane for the celebration of Easter, the issue attains a certain clarity when we take the surrounding landscape into consideration. We've already discussed some of that. When Cairn lit the fire, eyes were being drawn towards Slane from multiple directions. From the south at Tara, the political capital. From the east at Brunabonia, an important spiritual and ritual centre, which, by the way, I must clarify, may or may not have been occupied, or there may not have been humans continuously involved in rituals and celebration at Brunabonia. Brunabonia obviously dates to 3,000 or so years BC. But it retained an importance for the people right throughout the ages. There's no doubt about that. From the east at Brunabonia, an important spiritual and ritual centre, and from the west at the ancient complex associated with Talchu and the Cailleach, Loch Crew. Patrick could have chosen a location closer to the River Boyne, i.e. down in the valley, hidden from the prying eyes of the pagans, for whom the lighting of the fire was an act of sacrilege. However, it was lit on the height of Slane for very specific reasons, and some of these appear to relate to the importance of Slane in the pre-Christian landscape and beliefs. Was the lighting of the Paschal Fire at Slane an attempt by Christianity to commandeer and perhaps rehabilitate the pagan customs and narratives associated with the monuments and the landscape? Sorry, just replying to a message from the missus. Yes. So I was asking the question, was the lighting of the Paschal Fire at Slane an attempt by Christianity to commandeer and perhaps rehabilitate the pagan customs and narratives associated with the monuments and the landscape? Perhaps this is an unanswerable question, but its discussion does seem to have some merit. From the hill of Slane, one can easily see, on a clear day, the town of Drogheda. That's my town. This one. Not that I own it personally, but the one I live in. You get me. Where was I? Oh, I keep losing my place. On a clear day, the town of Drogheda, the Boyne estuary in Culpa, where Patrick had landed, and the Irish Sea. The ancient skyline of Drogheda was dominated by another great mound, whose origins have been ascribed by historians to the Normans, but by myth and folklore to the Tuatha De Danann, and that is Millmount. Historians say the mound was raised by the Normans in the late 12th and early 13th centuries in an effort to create a defended castle known as the Castle Moat of Drogheda. I have to let Saskia in. One moment. I do apologise. Come on. In you go. Good girl. Now, come on. That's live TV for you. The dog wants in, she wants in. That's fair enough. Now I have to find my place again. Known as the Castle Moat of Drogheda. Yes. Local folklore suggests two distinct traditions for the mound. This is the mound of Millmount. That it was the burial place of the wife of Govan or Govnew, the Tuatha De Danann smith, which is where, by the way, Tom King gets his name on Gova from. And that it was the final resting place of the Milesian bard Amergin, who had come ashore at Culpa in sight of the mound, just 2 miles away to the east. During our research into possible astronomical alignments involving Millmount in the early 2000s, Richard Moore and I observed that the sun at equinox sat in the direction of Slane as viewed from Millmount. Precise observations revealed that the sun appeared to sink directly into Dua Sláine, that is the mound of Slane, which is what I like to refer to it as, on the 24th of March, just 4 days after vernal equinox, and, interestingly, just a day before the date on which Cianan was said to have kindled the great Paschal Fire there. There are no traditions of which we are aware suggesting any link between St. Patrick and Millmount. A prominent tradition suggests that St. Patrick baptized the townspeople of Drogheda at a large stone outside the town known today as Croagh Patrick, the Stone of Patrick. And although I initially wrote that tradition does not assert whether Patrick was coming or going to Slane when this mass baptism took place, but in actual fact I since read that that took place allegedly in the year 443 AD, which was at least a decade after Patrick had arrived. So a different time than when he was on his mission to light the fire. But there is something in the Milesian stories associated with Millmount and Culpa that warrants closer consideration. The myths vary in their details. One account of the Milesian arrival suggests that Culpa was named after Culpa because he was the first brother to step ashore. A conflicting account attests that it was given the name after Culpa was drowned and had been buried in a mound not far from the river. The location of Amergin's burial is not pinpointed in myth. The Roll of Kings, the final volume of Laur Gawala Éireann, the Book of Invasions, tells us that he died in a battle with his brother Erimone at Bille Tenne, on the periphery of Meath, and that's in the far northwestern corner of Meath. Not at Lough Crew, but not far from Kells. But it is only in the local folklore of Drogheda that we find the suggestion that Amergin was in fact buried at Millmount. Is it possible that the traditions suggesting Culpa was buried under a mound close to the Boyne and Amergin was similarly buried in a mound overlooking the river are merely two versions of the same story? Had there been a conflation of the traditions somewhere along the line? The two mounds in question, Millmount and Rathculpa, are situated just 2.3 miles or 3.6 kilometres from each other, and both are indeed south of the river. Millmount occupies such a commanding position overlooking the landscape of Culpa that, in former times, before the addition of modern buildings and structures, a clear view of the entire river estuary was afforded. The notion that Amergin might have been buried within sight of the place where he landed is not at all far-fetched. It is tantalizing to consider. Sorry, I'll start that sentence again. Brendan Byrne is in the house. Fáilte Brendan. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Is it tantalizing to consider the possibility that St. Patrick may actually have landed at the ford in Drogheda, directly beneath the great mound of Millmount? Perhaps it is, but the orientation of the two great mounds of Drogheda and Slane towards the setting sun, coinciding with the date of the lighting of the Paschal Fire, is certainly noteworthy. An examination of the precise orientation of the passage of Cairn T, that's at Loughcrew, yields exciting and intriguing results. Using Google Earth, we see that Slane Mound is situated at an azimuth of 94.49 degrees as viewed from Cairn T, in other words, 4.5 degrees south of east. Millmount, which is not visible from Cairn T, being too far away, is situated at an azimuth of 93.88 degrees. Culpa is also situated precisely on this alignment at 93.88 degrees of azimuth from Cairn T. In other words, if you plot a line, or more precisely an arc, because it follows the curvature of the Earth, from Cairn T to Culpa, it passes precisely through Millmount. This could, of course, be a coincidence. Slane Mound does not sit precisely on this alignment, being just 0.61 degrees off, or just over 1/5 of the sun. And there is no tradition of which I am immediately aware of St. Patrick having been to Slieve na Caille. However, the fact that he is said to have landed on his mission to conquer, I put that in quotes, pagan Ireland, in the same place that the Milesians are said to have arrived on their mission of conquest is, at the very least, remarkable. More remarkable still is the fact that another of the eminent places most closely associated with the story of St. Patrick, the mountain called Croagh Patrick in County Mayo, is precisely in alignment with Millmount and Slane. In other words, if you plot a line or arc from Millmount through the mound on Slane, that is Duaslania, and continue as far as the west coast, you will see that it reaches quite precisely to the little church on the summit of Croagh Patrick. That circumstance may be entirely coincidental too, but it is intriguing to say the least, if not absolutely extraordinary. It becomes all the more interesting too when you consider some of the utterances of Amergin spoken as he put his foot on land for the first time at Culpa. For the second time, I know. Let's not be pedantic. Who, save I, knows the place where the sun sets? That is Amergin's quote. The place where the sun set shortly after equinox and on or around the date of the great springtime assembly of Tara, viewed from Amergin's burial mound, was over the hill of Slane and, in the far distance, some 135 miles away, the peak of that strangely conical mountain, which was known as Croagh Patrick in pre-Christian times and Croagh Patrick afterwards. It could, therefore, be said that there is a long-distance alignment of sites associated with St. Patrick. In fact, 3 of the principal locations of his story: Culpa, Slane, and Croagh Patrick. The fact that all 3 have strong pre-Christian traditions associated with them lends at least some credence to the suggestion that the story of St. Patrick's arrival at least borrowed from some of the earlier folklore associated with those sites. Being pedantic can be so much fun, says Robin Edgar. Nora says, I love Amergin's poem. Yes, indeed. Very, very beautiful and widely quoted in literature around the world, as I said. Was not his entire mission of conversion and no. Stop using big words, Anthony, that you can't pronounce. Was was not his entire mission of conversion and proselytization predicated on the requirement to incorporate at least some of the pre-Christian beliefs and customs into the new version of Christianity that eventually blossomed in Ireland? And was it not the case that the religion that emerged was a distinctly insular version that has been referred to as Irish or Celtic Christianity? A footnote in the translation of the Annals of the Four Masters by scholar John O'Donovan is interesting in that regard and warrants quoting here. Quote, "Nothing is clearer than that Patrick engrafted Christianity on the pagan superstitions with so much skill that he won the people over to the Christian religion before they understood the exact difference between the two systems of belief." And this is a continuation of O'Donovan's quote. "And much of this half pagan, half Christian religion will be found not only in the Irish stories of the Middle Ages, but in the superstitions of the peasantry of the present day." And O'Donovan was writing that in 1856. Two further aspects of St. Patrick's story that are clearly mythological are worthy of mention in this exploration. On Croagh Patrick, the saint endured significant challenges. He was harried and assailed by giant birds. In some accounts, they are described as demon birds. The well-known tradition that St. Patrick banished the snakes from Ireland while standing at its summit for 40 days and nights of fasting is not attested in the early accounts of his life, and seem to be a later development of the demon bird theme. Nevertheless, there is legitimate folk tradition asserting that St. Patrick banished monsters and serpents into lakes at numerous locations in Ireland, including at Lough Derg, with this tradition dating back to at least the 7th century. And of course, that's a tradition not just associated with St. Patrick, but also St. Columkill. Was Columkill the one who was swallowed entirely, like Jonah, swallowed entirely by a lake serpent, which he later had to tear apart from the inside? And there's another story involving a saint and the oil fish, isn't there? Anyway, I digress. Suffice to say that, as I said, despite the fact that I apologise for Coda, he's absolutely barking his head off there, and I don't know why. Just let him be. So let's just recap very briefly. The hagiographies, the written stories or biographies of Patrick's life, don't mention snakes. It's not mentioned in the early writing about St. Patrick. They mention birds and demon birds. It is only after the Norman invasion that the snakes get introduced into the story. And the custom now that's prevalent today is that, oh yeah, Patrick banished the snakes and he did it over in Croagh Patrick. But as I was saying, there are what I would consider to be indigenous traditions, and who knows what age they might be in folklore, that attest that the saint drove serpents and monsters that might be described as giant snakes into some of the lakes of Ireland. Myths of great heroes or solar deities who battle with and defeat snakes and serpents and dragons are to be found in many ancient cultures. In the Boyne Valley, I have long drawn attention to the story of the Mata, a giant, sluggish water serpent that sounds something like the Hydra of Greek mythology, that licked up the Boyne, thereby depriving it of all its water. In one rendition of the tale, it was Dagda, the Tuatha De Danann chief, who had attributes of a solar deity, that defeated the great beast with his club of anger. In another version, the monster is slain and dismembered at a stone on top of the Newgrange monument. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, there is an image of Apep, the serpent, personifying darkness, which Horus, or the rising sun, must conquer before he can reappear in the east. The killing of the Hydra of Lerna by Heracles follows a similar vein. There may be some astronomical significance to the near equinoctial alignment of Slane and Croagh Patrick, although what follows is admittedly tenuous. Thank you, Paul Campbell, for that. St. Column, is it St. Column or St. Columkill returned Nessie to Loch Ness after the beastie came ashore, scaring the locals. There you go. It's the same story retold in different forms, in different locations. Loch Nahannigan in County Wicklow, the Lake of the Monster. There you go. It's all over the place. Loch Ness Monster is one tradition of folklore and myth that reflects just so many other similar beliefs. So I'm talking now about some admittedly tenuous astronomical significance. There is a possibility that the mounds of Duaslania and Millmount are passage tombs dating from the Neolithic. Okay, that's not by any means certain and may not in fact be the case, but until such time as the archaeologists say no, definitely not, then we can speculate so. The archaeological jury is out on that notion, but the mound of the wife of the Gubon is mentioned as having been plundered by Vikings along with the three great mounds of Brunabonia in the year 863. If there was a Neolithic passage tomb in the area where the town of Drogheda is located today, it could hardly have been any other except the one we know as Millmount. Looking at what was happening in the sky over Slane in the Neolithic yields interesting results. The constellation we know today as Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer, sets over Slane as viewed from Millmount. This is in the Neolithic, and I've checked this. The constellation depicts a giant hero, Aesculapius, grappling with a large snake, the latter represented by the bipartite constellation of Serpens Caput, the head of the serpent, and Serpens Cauda, its tail, and those are located either side of Ophiuchus. It's supposed to be viewed as one constellation, but it's separated into two parts. It was Richard Moore who pointed out the curious happenstance that the shape of the constellation Ophiuchus represents that of a bishop's mitre worn by the saint. I have here a drawing. Now it's made on tracing paper, so I will get some white paper to put it against. I think that might work. This is a drawing made by Richard Moore about 20 years ago, showing exactly that, showing the constellation of Ophiuchus in the shape of the bishop's mitre. I hope you can see that. With Serpens Cauda and Serpens Caput, the snake or the serpent, ostensibly wrapped around Ophiuchus or Aesculapius. The position of the constellation Ophiuchus is also significant because he stands astride the great river of the heavens, the Milky Way, known in Irish as Bealach na Bófinne, the way of the white cow. And of course, there are all sorts of connections there with the Boyne River, the Milky Way, explored in Island of the Setting Sun, and my Bowen monograph. But thank you, Lexi. I'm glad you were able to see that. Barbara says my screen keeps freezing, so I get a detailed view of Anthony's wonderful face paint. Oh, it's the little things, you know, and for no extra cost, you know. In fact, he is positioned to the north of the Skye River, which is interesting because the mound of the Hill of Slane is also positioned to the north of the River Boyne. Ophiuchus, like Orion in the opposite part of the sky, is seen to guard the river crossing or ford, in Irish, A-F-O-D-T-H, the place where the sun, moon, and planets are seen to cross over the Milky Way. The shape of Ophiuchus also may be seen to represent St. Patrick's bell, which he threw at the demon birds on Croagh Patrick to chase them away. And we are soon arriving at the end of today's little exploration. The last story pertaining to Patrick that we will consider in this brief examination is told in the old coastal village of Skerries in County Dublin. After Patrick had been expelled from Wicklow by its pagan natives, he wasn't successful in proselytizing and converting everyone. He sailed northwards, and by the way, there were also several attempts made on his life. He sailed northwards and landed on a small island off Skerries. Sorry, there's a spelling mistake there that I just have to correct. A small island off Skerries, which is now known as St. Patrick's Island in his memory or his honour. When the saint arrived on this island, he had with him a goat, which was his sole companion and source of milk. Patrick would go to the mainland from this island to convert the natives. On one such mission of conversion, while Patrick was on the mainland, some of the people from Skerries went out to his island and stole his goat. They killed the goat, cooked it, and feasted on it. When Patrick returned home, he found his goat was missing. This made him very angry, and he resolved to go ashore to find out what had happened to his beloved goat. With 2 great strides, he reached the mainland. The first step took him to the back of Colt Island, and the second to Red Island, where he confronted the people of Skerries. The distance covered was about a mile. In other words, each stride was half a mile long. Legend says that where Patrick stepped onto Red Island, which is actually attached to the mainland by a narrow spit of land and therefore not really an island, his footprint is to be seen in the rock there to this day. Since then, the nickname Skerries Goats is given to the people of the town to remind them of this deed. If the story seems fantastic and highly implausible, that's because it is of mythological origin and may hardly relate to real events at all. Although I must say, and I didn't note it at the time, and I may add it into a published version later, there is a mention, I'm not sure if it's in the annals, I think, of Patrick arriving on an island off the Dublin coast at some point. So I think most of this is mythological, but not necessarily all of it. If it seems familiar, that's because St. Patrick's feats make him sound like Finn McCool, the giant, who was able to step from Antrim to Scotland to fight with another giant there. The Giant's Causeway was said to have been built by the giant Finn so that he could walk to Scotland without getting his feet wet. The Irish name for the causeway, Clochán na Fomóra, translates as the stepping stones of the Fomorians, or, more simply, the stepping stones of the giants. It is my opinion that the story from Skerries about Patrick's giant strides is a variation of the Giant's Causeway myth, and it is highly likely that similar customs about giants and causeways will be found in the vernacular folklore of other coastal villages. There was a belief, for instance, among the old inhabitants of the fishing village of Blackrock in County Louth, that an enormous causeway, quote, built with huge mountain stones, unquote, had been traced from Dunaney Point, some 8 or 9 miles to the south, across Dundalk Bay to Cooley Point. Another aspect of the Skerries story is very familiar, the one involving the saint's footprint being visible in the rocks. All across Ireland, there are standing stones and natural rock outcrops, which are said to carry the imprint of Finn McCool's footprints. These beliefs are so often juxtaposed and conflated with St. Patrick as to leave one wondering, pondering is the word actually, pondering, whether the myths associated with Patrick were merely appropriated or copied from the antecedent traditions, with a swapping or interchanging of names the only discernible difference. Interesting in this regard is the fact that the place where St. Patrick was supposed to have baptized the inhabitants of Drogheda, I believe that was 443 AD, but I'm not entirely sure, is today called Croagh Patrick, which literally means the stone of Patrick. And there at the side of the road, still to this day, is to be found a large boulder that actually looks like a glacial erratic rather than a standing stone, upon which the imprints of the saint's knees can allegedly still be found. And that's just another variation of a much older, or what I believe might be an older tradition. And in fact, there is some scholarly work that suggests that Patrick may have been a later version of Lou as well, as much as Finn McCool, because a lot of the traditions of Finn McCool were never written down. They arrived into the 19th and 20th century by word of mouth, having not really been written down anywhere along the way. Sheila Albert is, or is it Albert? Sheila is late, but not to worry, Sheila. You're very welcome. Happy St. Patrick's Day. And don't forget, of course, to watch the whole thing back again when it's finished. Apparently, my makeup is running. Boo! Thank you, Paula. Yes. And Helen points out that the residents of Skerries got his goat, so to speak. Yes, indeed. Skerries goat. And here we go, the concluding paragraph. Hope you've enjoyed yourselves. Whatever the case may be, it is clear that many of the traditions and stories associated with Patrick are wholly mythological. WHOLLY, not HOLY. The hagiographies of the great Irish saints are so similarly imbued with the mythological fabric as to leave one wondering whether there is much of factual or historical matter in them at all. Today, Ireland's best known saint will be celebrated in towns and cities all over the country and in many foreign lands. A great deal of people who join in the festivities will be greatly unaware of the complex fusion of history, myth, and folklore embedded in the story of his life. Rivers will turn green in his honour, pints will be drunk, parades held in cities across the world, and people's faces painted with icons to celebrate. Here in Ireland, many people no longer believe the narratives with pious reverence like they once did. But if we can be grateful to St. Patrick for one thing, it is that, preserved within the convoluted and variegated patchwork of narratives and traditions that constitute his life's story, are glimpses at an altogether different, more pagan and more ancient Ireland. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Shine, Nadina Usla, Nadina Golair. Please publish this. It's wonderful, says Lexi. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I probably will. Not sure in what form, and maybe it needs to be grown into something more comprehensive. Certainly, it needs a bibliography and footnotes. It absolutely does need that, you know. So, yes, and you'll hear all sorts of stories. Don't forget, too, that in pretty much every parish in Ireland, there is a church or a well or a stone or something named after Patrick. And in many cases, the local tradition will be that Patrick came there and he blessed the place, or he set up a church, or he, baptized the people or whatever. Patrick's name is everywhere. And you have to stand back from that and think about the plausibility of it. There was a Patrick furore that arose much later than the saint's lifetime. And the narrative was controlled by the church in the centuries following his life and death as an attempt to cement him as the apostle of the Irish, as the bishop, the first bishop of Ireland, etc., etc. It is clear, as I said, that many of the stories pertaining to Patrick are wholly mythological And it is as if somebody just said, oh, look, here's a story about Finn McCool. Let's just rub out Finn McCool's name or Lou's name or whoever it happened to be, and let's put St. Patrick in there instead. And the rest, as they say, is history. Or we might say the rest, as they say, is mythology. Anyway, I'm very glad to have been able to share that with you. I put myself under some pressure to get it ready for today because I realized when I started writing it on Monday night, I realized if I don't get this done by Thursday, St. Patrick's Day, there's no use because nobody will be interested in it until next year. So I did put a bit of pressure on myself to get it done. Not in Glendalough, Ireland. We have one of our own. Or Anthony, Brendan says, oh yeah, that, I was going to say St. Kieran. Don't be ridiculous, St. Declan. Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Charlotte. Glad you enjoyed it. And to everybody, you're all very welcome. Don't forget that we are back with Live Irish Myths for the regular Monday evening session more agus rirá agus ruúne buile crack agus ceol. No, we're back on Monday at the usual time of 8 p.m. Irish time. Now, at the moment, because we haven't sprung forward, but the states have sprung forward, at the moment there's a 4-hour differential between us and the eastern states. So 8 p.m. Irish time, 4 p.m. New York time, and isn't it 1 p.m. Pacific on Monday. I think we were going to do another episode on the Vikings to continue our exploration of the Vikings. Possibly some reading from Cogug Gael Regaliev and possibly some reading from Matthew Stout's wonderful book about medieval Ireland. In the meantime, I'm going to celebrate. I'm going to have dinner and I'm going to have a glass of wine and I'm going to have some fun with the family. We're going to have a games and karaoke night. There'll be singing and a bit of a session. So make sure you do the same. Don't forget to drown the shamrock wherever you are in the world. A very, very happy St. Patrick's Day to you. But don't also forget, very importantly, that for the first time, we have an extra bank holiday, an extra public holiday in Ireland tomorrow. Tomorrow coincides with what was previously celebrated before the famine as Sheila's Day or Saint Sheila's Day. Sheila was believed to have been either the wife or the mother of St. Patrick. And the tradition was that you could have a drink on St. Patrick's Day during the Lenten fast. You were allowed to drink on St. Patrick's Day, but you're also allowed to drink the next day on St. Sheila's Day. As in from next year, 2023, that public holiday will be on St. Bridget's Day, the first time a woman has been recognised in a public holiday. So raise a toast tomorrow to St. Sheila. Don't forget her completely. She is obscure because a lot of the traditions associated with her disappeared at the time of the famine. And yet, Patrick, you know what I mean? Does anybody really know the story of St. Patrick? That's the question. When you go out and you celebrate your Irish roots and your connections, or even if you're not Irish and you want to celebrate St. Paddy's Day, do you realise how much mythological fabric is contained within his story? Fascinating stuff. Anyway, hope you've all enjoyed it. I certainly have. It's been a great joy. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Lá féile fórig honna díobh go léir ar fud an domhain. Have a very, very great day, no matter where you are. Enjoy the celebrations. Don't go too wild. I'm working tomorrow, despite the public holiday, so I won't be going too wild. We'll see you all again on Monday. And in the meantime, have a great time. Don't forget, if you're on the YouTube channel, do subscribe and spread the word. And if you'd like to support Mythical Ireland, you can become a patron and get lots of extra goodies, including merchandise. We'll see you all. Have a good one. Slán go fóill, Culasov, Ichawa. It's too early to say that. It's not even dark yet. Most importantly, Tóg go bugé.